brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks. In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the harmonic balancer. This is a 2003 Honda Civic with the 1.7 liter 4-cylinder. Pretty much the same for 2001 to 2005, as well as the Acura EL. You'll need a new harmonic balancer from 1AAuto.com, 10 to 19 millimeter sockets, wrenches, and ratchets and extensions, a Honda special crank holding tool, breaker bar, torque wrench, jack and jack stands, and a flat blade screwdriver.
Using a 19 millimeter socket and a breaker bar, break your lug nuts loose. Raise and support your vehicle on jack stands. Finish removing your lug nuts. Remove the wheel and tire from the vehicle. Pry out on the inside of the push connectors with a flat blade screwdriver. And remove them from the inside of the splash shield. Allow the splash shield to hang out of your way. Remove the power steering adjusting bolt using a 10 millimeter socket and ratchet. Loosen the adjusting nut with a 12 millimeter wrench. Loosen the pivot bolt at the bottom of the power steering pump with a 12 millimeter wrench. Remove the adjusting bolt. And remove the power steering belt. Remove the rest of the pivot bolt from the bottom of the power steering pump. Once the power steering pump is free, push out on the tab to release the power steering reservoir and move the assembly out of the way without disconnecting the lines. Remove the 10 millimeter nut holding the power cable to the back, the green connector on the side, the 14 millimeter bolt at the top of the alternator, and loosen the adjusting nut at the back. Remove the power cable to the alternator, the 10 millimeter socket and ratchet. Disconnect the connector at the back and release the harness from the bracket. To release the harness, just push down on this tab on the back. Slide it off. We'll be removing our valve cover later, so we'll fish this part of the harness up out of the way now. Loosen the 12 millimeter bolt at the bottom of the alternator and the 14 millimeter bolt at the top. Loosen the adjusting bolt at the bottom until you can remove the belt from the alternator. Remove the belt from the vehicle. To remove the 19 millimeter bolt on the crank pulley, you'll need the special holding tool from Honda, which sits into this hex, a strap wrench to keep the pulley from turning, an extension and a breaker bar. Get onto the 19 millimeter bolt in the center of the pulley. And these tend to have a lot of torque on them. They're very stubborn. So we're gonna use a cheater pipe on our breaker bar. This is actually the handle off of our jack. On the handle. Takes a good bit of force to break these loose. I've already cracked it loose a little bit. But with the cheater pipe, you really got to put your weight into it to get them going. Once the bolt's been broken loose, you can remove your special tools. You can use a 19mm socket and ratchet to remove the bolt the rest of the way. Remove the pulley from the crankshaft. Be careful not to drop the key stock that's inside the pulley. Here we have our old part from the vehicle and our new part from 1AAuto.com. As you can see, they're the exact same size pulley. Use the same grooves for both the power steering and the alternator AC belt. They have the same keyway in the splines to align to the crankshaft, and they have the same 50mm hex for the Honda special tool to remove and install them. Install your key stock into the slot on the crank and align your crank pulley to that. Install your crank bolt. Reinstall your Honda crankshaft holder tool. Use a 19mm socket to bring the bolt down. And torque to 148 foot-pounds. Reinstall the alternator and compressor belt. With the belt reinstalled on the pulleys, retension the alternator. Down to the alternator. Install the 4-pin connector at the front. Followed by the power lead and the 10mm nut for the power lead. Tighten up the power terminal with a 10mm wrench or socket. Bring the power steering pump and reservoir back to the front of the motor. Install the pump onto the carriage bolt. Secure it with the nut. Reinstall the tensioner into the pump. Install the nut on the back of the tensioner bolt. Just hand tight for now. Reinstall the power steering belt. Loosen up your tensioner until you're able to reinstall the tensioner bracket. Put the 10mm bolt in. Tighten it with a 10mm socket and ratchet. Retension the power steering pump belt. Tighten the power steering belt until you have about a 1/4 inch of give. Tighten the 12mm nut on the back of the power steering pump tensioner bolt with a socket and ratchet. Tighten the 12mm nut at the bottom of the power steering pump. Reinstall power steering reservoir. Reinstall the negative terminal on your battery. Tighten it down with a 10mm wrench. After everything has been installed and rechecked, it's time to start your vehicle. Install your lower splash shield with the 2 plastic push pins. Reinstall your wheel. Start your lug nuts with a 19mm socket. Using a 19mm socket, torque your lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds in a cross pattern.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope this video helped you out. Next time you need parts for your car, please visit 1aauto.com. Also check out our other helpful how-to as well as diagnosis videos.